Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has accused Ukraine and Europe of trying to push the United States away from negotiations with Moscow. He claimed that Kyiv and European capitals had rejected the agreements allegedly reached by Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin at their Alaska summit in August 2025. Lavrov said Trump had initially praised the meeting and presented it as the start of a political process, while Ukraine and Europe insisted they had not been involved. According to Lavrov, they have since tried to derail Washington's efforts.
If you read President Trump's speech immediately after Alaska and the summit, he spoke highly of the agreement, saying that we had launched the process. But Europe and Ukraine said, "We were not involved. This does not concern us." And now they have done everything they can to sidetrack the United States. President Trump is not saying that Alaska no longer exists, but the Europeans and the Ukrainian regime have publicly declared that the Alaska agreements are dead. They've buried them.
The Kremlin has found a new explanation for why the Baltic states are strengthening their defenses. Apparently, Russia is not the threat. Everyone is simply being brainwashed. Lithuanian intelligence has warned that Moscow may be preparing attacks against critical infrastructure in the Baltic region and elsewhere in Europe. But Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov dismissed those concerns as another attempt to frighten the public and expand NATO's military presence near Russia.
It's a fresh batch of bugaboos intended to continue the brainwashing and prepare the population for further militarization. To do this, they need to create an enemy image on the other side, our side in this case, and use it as a pretext to continue moving NATO military infrastructure in all its forms into the Baltic states.
Look at what finally seems to be shaking people in Russia. Not the full-scale invasion in 2022, not the occupation that began in 2014, but fuel shortages. Ukraine's strikes on Russia's oil infrastructure appear to be hitting where it hurts the most.
It's going to get worse. It will get worse every day, every week, every month, every year. And it will keep getting worse for as long as he remains in power. Communist, Democrat, liberal, right-wing, I don't give a damn. It makes absolutely no difference. The life of every single person in Russia is now under threat. If you continue to deny this, if you keep claiming that these are some external forces your government is supposedly fighting, then I have bad news for you. You're either a complete idiot, a coward, or someone who sold themselves.
Vladimir Putin has sent a big hello to Russian troops, while also insisting that the country's key interest rate should come down. During a meeting with the head of Yakutia, Nikolaev, Putin asked him to pass on his greetings to soldiers fighting in what Moscow still calls its special military operation. He then turned to the economy, arguing that lower interest rates would be a natural result of macroeconomic stability. Russia's own central bank, however, has already acknowledged that problems on the fuel market may influence inflation expectations among both households and businesses.
Send my big hello to your guys. And for the economy, the key interest rate should come down. This should happen, and it will be a natural process based on macroeconomic indicators and the stability of the economy.
France has apparently decided that warm words about supporting Ukraine are no longer enough. Kyiv will receive production licenses for Scalp missiles, AASM-guided bombs, and together with Italy, Aster 30 interceptors. Ukraine will also become the first country to receive the upgraded SAMP-T air defense system, while 2 additional SAMP-T batteries are expected this year, and Aster deliveries are to be accelerated by October. And Paris is going further. Ukraine will purchase its first 16 Rafale fighter jets.
As a result of our negotiations with Emmanuel and the work of our teams, Ukraine and France have reached an important agreement, a genuinely leading step by France in defense cooperation with Ukraine in the interests of all of Europe. Ukraine will receive licenses to produce very serious weapons, Scalp missiles, AASM bombs, and, together with Italy, Aster 30 missiles. France will also cooperate with us and other partners within the Freya anti-ballistic program, which will become one of our special future strengths. Ukraine will be the first country to receive the new enhanced French-Italian SAMP/TNG systems. These are effective anti-ballistic systems. France will also provide 2 SAMP/T batteries to strengthen our protection this year. At the same time, France and Italy will accelerate deliveries of Aster 30 missiles by October. Ukraine will also purchase its first 16 Rafale aircraft for its combat aviation, together with weapons for them. Training for our pilots and mechanics in France should begin this year, after which the first 4 Rafale jets will be transferred to the armed forces of Ukraine.
The Kremlin is once again insisting that Russia has nothing to do with anything. There is no evidence and the sanctions are illegal. Dmitry Peskov rejected accusations that Moscow was behind cyber attacks against European countries and said Russia has already learned to live under tens of thousands of restrictions. According to him, the country has adapted, found ways around the sanctions and reduced their impact. So sanctions, as usual, apparently do not work, although the Kremlin keeps explaining in great detail how hard it has worked to evade them.
We do not accept any of these accusations. You know that for many years, Russia has been accused of things with which it has had absolutely no involvement. These accusations are always unsubstantiated, they are never properly argued, and we never hear any evidence. Russia has already adapted to tens of thousands of Western sanctions, learned how to circumvent them and minimize their negative impact. We will continue doing the same in the future.
Trump likes winners, and that may be exactly why Ukraine's battlefield success is finally pulling him closer to Kyiv. The Zelensky economic advisor, Christia Freeland, says the US decision to allow Ukraine to produce Patriot interceptor missiles is genuinely historic. But a license will not save anyone tonight. At the same time, Ukraine is finally no longer fighting with one hand tied behind its back. Kyiv is producing more of its own long-range weapons, no longer asking permission where to strike, and its attacks on Russian refineries, ports, and logistics are changing not only the war, but apparently Donald Trump's mood as well.
Getting the licenses is really good news for Ukraine, but it would be even better if Ukraine were getting Patriot missiles right now, because the country is being hammered. Between receiving a license and actually producing the missiles, time will pass, and during that time, many people will die. Ukrainians are not fighting to put on a show for Donald Trump. They are fighting because otherwise they will die. But Trump really does like winners, and he is not afraid to change his position. The stronger Ukrainians become, the more likely they are to receive his support. It was a mistake to ask Ukraine to fight with one hand tied behind its back. Now Ukrainians are using more of their own weapons. They no longer need to ask anyone's permission where to strike, and that has made a very big difference.
US senators are trying to turn Lindsey Graham's final political battle into law. Democrats and Republicans have unveiled a revised sanctions package designed to cut the money Russia uses to finance its war against Ukraine. The original threat of blanket tariffs of up to 500% has been reduced to targeted tariffs of up to 100% against the largest buyers of Russian energy, primarily China and India. But the bill goes much further than tariffs. It would impose blocking sanctions on the major parts of Russia's energy, financial and defense sectors, oligarchs, business figures, and Vladimir Putin himself. The White House would retain limited authorities to issue waivers, while European allies reducing their dependence on Russian gas would be protected.
Channeling my Lindsey Graham to say, this is a big effing deal. And we are all doing good today. Lindsey would be proud of each of us and of all of our colleagues who are joining today. this sweeping sanctions bill has been long in the works. It took painstaking, sometimes painful negotiations and discussions, but it meets a pivotal moment. It's been referred to as a tariffs bill, but actually it imposes full blocking sanctions on wide swaths of the Russian economy, including its energy industry, financial industry, defense industrial base, oligarchs, business people, and Vladimir Putin himself. It imposes tariffs that are targeted, narrowly limited to the 5 major purchasers, up to 100%, with waiver authority that is narrowly tailored and constricted. And those 5 major purchasers right now of oil are China, India, Slovakia, Hungary, Azerbaijan. And on gas purchasers, it makes an exception for the purchasers who are buying less than 15% of total Russian natural gas imports and are taking significant steps to reduce their purchases. So our European allies are not targeted here.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has arrived in Kyiv to mark Ukraine's Statehood Day. She is joined by leaders from Southeast Europe for the 5th Ukraine-Southeast Europe Summit, where military support, defense cooperation, and Ukraine's path to EU are at the table.
Ukraine's defense industry is operating at a speed and a scale that no one thought possible. We want to learn from Ukraine, but we also want to invest in Ukraine's defense industry. Today, we are launching the EU-Ukraine Defense Industrial Partnership.
While relations between Washington and Moscow on Earth increasingly resemble a new Cold War, in space they are still flying together. MS-29 spacecraft has lifted off from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, carrying NASA astronaut Anil Menon and Russian cosmonauts Pyotr Dubrov and Anya Kikina. The crew will spend 8 months abroad. The International Space Station NASA administrator attended the launch, becoming the first head of the U.S. Space Agency to visit Baikonur in 8 years. So on Earth, there are sanctions, war, and a deeply damaged relationship. In orbit, the United States and Russia still depend on each other. London has once again acknowledged that Brexit damaged the British economy, while the country's future remains inseparably tied to Europe. Chancellor Rachel Reeves called for the next UK-EU summit to be rescheduled as soon as possible so the two sides can finalize new agreements on trade, energy and youth mobility. She also highlighted Britain's participation in the European Union's 90 billion euros loan for Ukraine.
I've always been clear about the damage that Brexit did to our economy. Britain's future is inescapably bound with that of Europe, our largest trading partner, with whom we share common interests and common values. We've already made significant progress. Participation in Horizon Europe is supporting the development of cutting-edge technology. We're set to rejoin the EU's Erasmus scheme from next year. And yesterday, the Prime Minister announced an agreement on the UK's participation in the EU's €90 billion loan to Ukraine, which will strengthen our defence links and our defence industrial base. I want to see the next UK-EU summit rescheduled as soon as possible so that we can finalise ambitious agreements on agri-foods, emissions trading, electricity and a youth experience scheme.
That's all for now. Thank you for watching.